It was supposed to be a routine interview with Michael B. Jordan about his new movie, but something went wrong after a viewer shouted out. "So, Michael," Lauren begins as the cameras roll, "your new film, Sinners, comes out next week. It's your directorial debut, and people are already calling it revolutionary. Tell us, what makes this film special?" Michael nods, his voice steady but laced with passion. Sinners isn't just a horror movie, it's a story about America, about a time when black people worked without pay, endured violence, and their lives held no value to the system. We wanted to show not just the pain, but the resistance, the strength of spirit. This film is about how the past still echoes in us today. The audience applauds, though a few people in the back rows whisper among themselves. Michael notices but doesn't falter. He talks about filming in New Orleans, collaborating with historians, and how his grandmother shared stories of segregation and the fight for civil rights. His words ring with sincerity. Lauren nods, but her eyes scan the audience, searching for reactions. "It's a bold topic," she says. "Weren't you worried the film might stir controversy?" Michael smiles, but there's steel in his expression. Controversy means people are thinking. And if they're talking, maybe they'll start to think. Art is supposed to provoke, Lauren. If we silence history, we repeat it. The applause grows louder, but suddenly a shout cuts through the room, sharp as a whip. "That's what they deserved." The studio freezes. Lauren's jaw drops, her hand hovering over her notes. The cameras capture the moment, and the director in the earpiece whispers something in a panic. The audience turns to the source, a middle-aged man in a blue shirt, a smug smile on his face. His name is Tom Keaton, a local businessman known in certain circles for his outspokenness on social media. He crosses his arms, as if throwing down a gauntlet. Michael slowly turns his head toward him. His face is unreadable, but his eyes blaze. He doesn't stand, doesn't raise his voice, but his silence is heavier than any shout. Lauren hurriedly intervenes. "Okay, let's keep this respectful. Michael, perhaps you'd like to—" "No, Lauren," Michael interrupts quietly. "I want to hear what he meant." The tension in the studio spikes. Tom Keaton stands, his smile widening. He speaks to the audience, not Michael. "I'm just saying, those were different times. People lived how they lived. Why keep dragging up the past? It's just a movie, no need to make it a tragedy." Murmurs ripple through the crowd. A few people snicker, others look uncomfortable. Lauren tries to change the subject, her voice trembling. "Michael, maybe you could tell us about the cast." Michael ignores her. He locks eyes with Tom, his voice calm but each word landing like a blow. "You said that's what they deserved. Are you saying that enslavement, beatings, and the destruction of families was justified? Explain that to me, please." Tom shifts, caught off guard, but his pride kicks in. He lifts his chin. "I'm saying you don't need to rewrite history to make everyone feel like a victim. That was a long time ago, and we've all moved on. Why do you keep going back to it?" The audience splits. Some clap for Tom, others whisper in outrage. Lauren looks flustered, and the producer in her earpiece is likely shouting to cut the segment. But Michael doesn't back down. He stands slowly, his movements deliberate, like a chess player preparing a checkmate. "You say moved on," he repeats. "My grandmother grew up in Alabama, where her brother was beaten for walking into a whites-only store. That wasn't a long time ago. That was in her lifetime. And when you say that's what they deserved, you're saying it to her. You're saying it to millions whose stories you've never heard. So I'll ask again. What did you mean?" Tom opens his mouth, but the words catch in his throat. The audience falls silent. Michael doesn't raise his voice, but his presence fills the studio. He's speaking not just to Tom, but to everyone. Sinners isn't just a movie, it's about people who survived despite words like yours. And if you think history is over, you haven't been listening. It lives in us. We're not dragging it up, we're demanding it be acknowledged. A few people in the audience start to clap. A woman in the front row, an African-American named Tina, nods, her eyes glistening. A young man next to her, who had laughed earlier, lowers his gaze. Lauren, sensing she's losing control, tries to intervene. "Michael, those are powerful words. Could you—" "I'm not done, Lauren," Michael says, his tone still calm. I want Mr. Keaton to explain why he thinks my story, my ancestors' story, isn't worth telling. Tom Keaton's face reddens, his confidence crumbling. He mutters something about free speech, but his words sound hollow. Michael pauses, letting the moment sink in. Then he turns to Lauren. You asked why this film is special. Because it forces us to look where people like him don't want to. And I won't stop until these stories are heard. The applause swells, but the tension lingers. Tom sits down, his face burning. Lauren, trying to salvage the show, calls for a break, but the cameras keep rolling. Michael sits, his gaze fixed on the distance. He knows this is just the beginning. Lauren tries to steer the conversation back to safer ground. Michael, you speak so passionately about Sinners. Let's talk about the cast, the filming. What inspired you? Michael nods slowly, but his eyes remain on the audience. He senses the moment isn't over, that Tom Keaton's words weren't just a shout, but an echo of a deeper prejudice that can't be ignored. He speaks, his voice steady but piercing. Lauren, I'd love to talk about the cast, but first I need to finish this conversation. Because what just happened wasn't just words. It's an attitude. And if we move on to the next question, we're pretending it didn't happen. That's not how I work. The audience freezes. A few people clap, but most wait to see what happens next. Lauren gives an awkward smile, her eyes darting between Michael and the director in her earpiece, who's likely yelling for her to regain control. But Michael doesn't give her the chance. Mr. Keaton, he says, addressing Tom, his tone calm but firm, you said we're dragging up the past. You said my ancestors deserved it. I gave you a chance to explain, but you're dodging. So let me tell you why your words matter. Tom fidgets in his seat, his confidence wilting under Michael's gaze. He opens his mouth, but Michael raises a hand, stopping him. My grandmother, Mary Jordan, grew up in Montgomery, Alabama. She was 12 when her older brother, my grandfather James, was beaten for accidentally walking into a whites-only store. They didn't just beat him, Mr. Keaton. They left him on the side of the road, and he died 3 days later. He was 16. My grandmother carried that pain her whole life, but she taught me that truth isn't a burden. It's a weapon. And Sinners is my truth. It's her truth. The studio falls silent. Tina, the woman in the front row, wipes away tears. The young man next to her, who had smirked when Tom shouted, bows his head. Lauren looks stunned, her notes forgotten on the table. Michael continues, his voice gaining strength but remaining calm. You say leave the past behind, he says, addressing Tom but clearly speaking to everyone. The past lives in me. It lives in everyone who's ever been underestimated, humiliated, or silenced. Sinners isn't about blame. It's about accountability. It's about showing how a system broke people but couldn't break their spirit. And when you say, that's what they deserved, you're not just insulting me. You're insulting those who fought so I could sit here today. The applause starts softly, then grows louder. Tina stands, her clapping a challenge. Others join, a young Latina, an older man with grey hair, even a few who hesitated earlier. Tom Keaton looks smaller, his face pale, but he doesn't give up. It's just a movie, he shouts, his voice trembling. You're making it a political statement to get famous. Why can't you just entertain people? Michael smiles, but his smile is sharp as a blade. A political statement, he repeats. My career is a statement, Mr. Keaton. I'm a black man who made a film about my country's history. Every step I've taken in Hollywood has been a fight against people who thought I couldn't be an actor, a producer, a director. But I'm here. And I don't make films to entertain people who want to forget the truth. I make them so people like you start thinking. The audience erupts in applause. Lauren, sensing the thread slipping, tries to intervene. Michael, those are powerful words. Can you tell us how you hope this film impacts viewers? Michael turns to her, his gaze softening but unwavering. I hope people see themselves in Sinners. Not just black people, but anyone who's ever been forced to stay silent. I want them to see how the power of truth can change a conversation. And I want people like Mr. Keaton to think about why their words hurt. Tom Keaton stands, his face flushed with anger. He points at Michael. You don't know who I am, he says. I have a business. I pay taxes. I support this city. You can't just accuse me of racism on national TV. Michael doesn't move. His voice remains calm, but each word lands like a blow. I'm not accusing you of racism, Mr. Keaton. I'm saying your words hurt because they deny the pain of millions. And if you think your business or your taxes give you the right to say, that's what they deserved about my ancestors, you're wrong. You don't know who I am. Those last words fall like a stone into water, sending ripples through the studio. The audience murmurs, cameras zoom in on Michael's face. Lauren looks flustered, but knows this moment will go viral. She tries to wrap up the segment. Okay, let's thank Michael for his passion and… Wait, Lauren, Michael interrupts. I have one more thing to say. He turns to the audience, his voice gaining new strength. Sinners isn't just my film. It's a film for everyone who wants to understand where we came from and where we're going. And if you think history is just the past, look around. It's here, in this studio, in this conversation, and I won't stop until it's heard. The studio erupts in applause. Tina in the front row cries, but her face glows with pride. The young man next to her, who laughed earlier, now claps, his eyes downcast. An older man with grey hair in the back nods, his hands trembling. Tom Keaton sits, his face pale, his confidence shattered. Lauren, realizing the show has spiraled out of control, calls it to a close. Thank you, Michael B. Jordan. Sinners is out next week, don't miss it. The cameras cut, but the studio buzzes. People approach Michael as he leaves the stage. Tina hugs him, whispering, "Thank you." The young man who laughed extends a hand, his voice shaking. You opened my eyes. I'm sorry." Michael nods, his gaze soft but firm. "Just watch the film, brother. And listen." The next day, the interview goes viral. On X, the hashtag #Sinners Speak trends, and clips of Michael's speech rack up millions of views. Journalists write about the moment that changed television. Tom Keaton, it turns out, owns a chain of Los Angeles auto shops. Screenshots of his old posts downplaying historical injustices surface on X. His business starts losing customers, and the local community organizes a picket outside his main office. Tom, sitting in his office, reads the headlines. Michael B. Jordan shuts down racist comments on talk show. Sinners, why this film is making America talk. He shuts off his computer, his face drawn, but deep down he starts to think. He recalls Michael's words about his grandmother, his brother, the pain he never experienced. He doesn't admit it out loud, but something in him cracks. Sinners hits theaters and breaks box office records. The film sparks heated discussions, from articles in The Atlantic to TikTok posts. Schools and universities host screenings, after which students pull out books on civil rights history. Michael receives an NAACP award for his contributions to art and activism. At the ceremony he says, "This film is for my grandmother, for Tina, for everyone who listens. Truth isn't a burden, it's power. Go tell your stories." Tina, who was in the studio, becomes an activist, launching a Sinners Speak campaign for youth. She wears a t-shirt with Michael's quote, "We don't stay silent. We listen." The young man who laughed starts reading about segregation and posts on X. "I was wrong. Thank you, Michael B. Jordan, for making me think." Tom Keaton stays out of the public eye, but a month later, he anonymously donates to an organization supporting civil rights education. He doesn't seek recognition, he just starts listening.